I think Dipannita, you're muted.
Is everyone here? Pramod sir, Shefali ma'am, Drishti ma'am. So, good evening, everyone. Um, Welcome to the first panel discussion of Meta 2021. This panel is called New Directions for English Departments. And as the name suggests, I will be talking to our professors on the panel here, who are also the fresh faces of the department, about teaching, classrooms, the pandemic, obviously, and some of the challenges, experiences, and innovations they've witnessed through their engagement in an English department. So, we as students will be hearing a lot about what goes on the other side, and I'm very excited to hear what the panelists have to say. So, a little bit of introductions. On the panel, we have Professor Drishti Rakhra, who teaches creative writing, journalism, and English. Hi, ma'am. We have Professor Micah Thambi, who teaches English Studies, World Literature, and General English. Professor Muthukumar, who teaches English Studies, Indian Literature, and General English. Professor Pramod Harle, who teaches General English, Archiving, and Documentation. And Professor Shefali Mathew, who teaches creative writing, English, and journalism. Hello. I'm Dipannita. I'm a second year MBA student here, and I will be moderating this session. So there'll be two parts of this discussion. For the first 30 minutes, I will have a conversation with the panelists. And during this time, the audience can send in their questions and comments in the chat box. After this, we will throw open the conversation to the audience, where I will redirect your questions back to the panelists. And small note, the session is being recorded, so it will be uploaded later on YouTube, so you can catch the recording on the Department of English's YouTube channel. Please do send in your questions in the chat box. I don't want to be the only one asking questions. So I'd like to begin our conversation with the pandemic and the shift that it has brought in teaching and in classrooms. As a student, my struggle was not being able to be in the space of a physical classroom and have been confronted with this like abrupt distance from the professors, from my classmates, from the routines, going to college, sitting in class, going to canteen, go to the library, etc. So, borrowing from the theme of this year's meta, which is unconfined, I'm curious about how you have attempted to fight the confines of online teaching. How have you modified your approach to the classroom with the shift to online education? This is an open question, so anyone can answer.
Okay, I think I will go first. Um, See, this online platform itself is a new thing which we engage, during the pandemic, and that too the first. We are the first. For example, if I talk about myself, I'm the first. This is the first teaching assignment that I take in my as a professional. This is my first teaching assignment. So my entry into the teaching field itself is through online. So that is very strange, because when you have a teaching experience in offline classes, so if you go to online, you need to you will be modifying all those things happen. But straight away I kick-started this teaching profession uh, through online. Maybe I can say how my teachers taught and I'm teaching today. That is, we can say, because during our MA and BA and MPhil days, we we have this classroom space, and we meet the teachers. All that happens, but and we have the interaction. So it will be very dynamic, because we will have we will listen to the lecture, we will have interaction, we will have questions, we will have discussion, debates, all those things will happen. But in online, it is a bit difficult because number one, we cannot see anybody because due to the bandwidth, all those things, we switch off the camera, so we just see the screen, with numbers. That is a big challenge. But one thing is we try to we one one way of tackling that challenge is we try to make things more interactive. That is, we try to call people. We try to ask somebody to respond. So we ask the class to be more active instead of I lecturing. In between lecturing also, I tend to ask them. I tend to call people. I tend to engage with them. Whatever. Uh, the problem is we don't know name also. That's a big problem. We have only numbers. One, we can remember name only when we see and speak with that person. We can remember name. So that is also a big challenge. But the one tackling method is we try to call people and ask, what do you feel? What is what do you get, or what do you please comment on this? So we are, or I'm expecting them to comment or send their opinion, or post their opinion or speak. So that way, I think I'm trying to uh, get out of this confinement of online space through volunteer, creation of volunteer interaction. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah. Can I go next?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just going to continue off where Muthu stopped off. So what Muthu was saying about the first time he's teaching, he started off with the online thing. It's a very similar experience for me too, because I've trained people in the corporate space, which has happened virtually, right? But teaching, right? In the corporate space, people want to be in those meetings, right? In these classes, it's a little debatable if people want to be there or not, right? So you'll have to, it's a different ball game altogether, right? And so for me, like Muthu was saying, it is essentially this process of learning the online, using this online tool to teach people, right? That's been a major challenge. And so recently when we opened up classes and the first year MA students had come in, right, one thing that I was laughing to myself as I walked into the class was I was wondering if I'd ask people to unmute yourself and speak because they would just be standing there, and I thought, hey, hello, unmute yourself and speak, because a lot of times we call out names and numbers and there is like no response at all, and so it's a little, it puts you off. But yeah, we've got to get used to all of these things, right? And one of the things that I've been using, like Muthu pointed out, that we can't see people, we don't know their names, right? One of the things that I tried to do was to get these students, right? They are meeting their families or they're with other people, right? At least use that interaction. So I'd get them to do some writing or some tasks that involves connections that way, right? And so connecting, using those stories, I felt the students were able to do some production that way, and that I felt was one of the things that I feel is helping me and is something that I'm bringing into this.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'll go next.
Yes.
So I'll connect to both of them. All of us joined together. So I had a very brief moment of teaching experience in a PUC college. So the age group is completely different, and the challenge is something very ultimate, which you don't see these things in a degree or a PG course. because the priority also changes when in all these classes, the students' priority also changes in a way. The way they look at subject, the way they look at the idea of learning also changes. So I was actually looking forward for a physical class when I'm seriously going for a professional teaching setup when I entered. So like Professor Muthukumar said, I also started in a very serious way in a online mode. Connecting to Pramod, Professor Pramod said, I would suggest what I try to do is to one thing coming to this department, to this particular department, is that they are already a good thing is that usually in a traditional in a normal setup or a scenario in English department, specifically in UG departments, UG students does not have this training to respond to literature. They are not trained in that way, or they are not asked to do that. I remember in my UG class, I have never opened my mouth, or I am not required to do that. They will be listening and just writing the exam. And so here, in a way, they are actually asked from the first semester itself to respond. In a way, it would have been like completely mind blowing in a physical classroom if that kind of a situation comes. That possibility for experimenting, possibility to make, they will also feel so much connected in that sense. But still, even once it came to online class, unlike other colleges, students, specifically undergraduate students, I think here they are in a better position. I felt they are trained to in a way to respond to literature. That is something helpful for teachers. I felt, and otherwise. One thing I'm focusing on is to not to teach a lot, uh, to cut down the syllabus, because we have the freedom to make our own syllabus, something which is very important at this point of time. There is no point of just taking a lot of text and telling them, because we are actually talking to a window. It's a virtual window, and we are actually coming up with the text, and we are also sharing another window to them and telling them to read and respond. This many text, actually it's very tiresome for both of us in that way. So this independence, or the we have this what you say, the teachers having the right to decide and cut short the syllabus and according to the time and space where we all belong. That is something which I'm using, which not just bombarding with too many text and all. The length of the text also vary because of that. Apart from that, something which is you cannot compare and say that this is better compared to whatever other places are happening. I found this place is actually surviving in a better format. I'm pretty sure about talking to my friends who are working in other places. That is something which is because of the system or method we are actually following. It actually working at this time of online system, whatever classroom situation we are actually having. But I'm really sure it would have been really nice, those who studied here before and those who passed out. This would have been completely another level of learning in a offline mode. Apart from the using, because we are using in a virtual platform, using visuals and not to just balancing the visual and balancing the text and something which will make them, because you cannot look at a screen like continuously. So some kind of a movement it happens in the screen, that is something very useful. So using visual is something, I don't know if it's recommended, but something at this point of time I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you want to go next, Drishti?
Okay, I don't mind. Yeah, so I was just listening to the others also and just thinking to myself and trying to figure out, trying to remember what a classroom actually looks like, because much of our teaching experiences also comes from the cues that we're able to take from our students, and the conversations that they are having parallelly outside of whatever we're saying also. I remember walking into my first class and having decided already before that, because I'm also a young female teacher, that I have to establish some kind of ground rules beforehand. So every time I've gone to a class till now, and I've done this with my online classes also. I don't know if they listened, but I've done it. I've said that there are 3 rules in class. One rule is that you don't talk when I'm talking. If I'm not talking, then you can talk. The other rule is that if I give you an assignment, you have to submit it on time. And the third rule, I think it was about not coming late. So I was just listening to the others and trying to figure out. So at this point, I'm wondering how that would translate to the online mode, because then if I'm asking people not to talk right now, would that be don't unmute by mistake, or would that be you better unmute when I ask you to unmute, or would that be reply on the chat? And so what's happening now is that our classrooms look entirely different, and this really changes the experience of teaching, but also sitting in a classroom, as you said. So I'm in terms of how our approaches have changed. I think much of it comes from this, just not being able to address a bunch of people together. So even more than just looking at students, it's also them sitting in a group and maybe reading a text together, or watching a film together and looking at each other and looking at reactions, and like so this morning I was doing this piece in class by Rohini Mohan that I've done in a classroom before, and it's a longish piece, and I was reading it, and I kept reading it, and I had warned them before that it's a long piece, so if you complain later, it's not going to work. But so I kept reading it, but by the end of it, I was a little bit bored, because I couldn't also not read the piece, but I was just listening to my own voice, and I was waiting for something else to happen. But so in a classroom, there's that reaction that you're able to get. So with the online mode, the little bit of space that we have with students is that there's so much that we can do, that we have to do with it, but we're not able to do with it, because it's in the 50 minutes of the classroom, usually the first 10 minutes would go into getting the students to settle down, the last 10 minutes probably in attendance, but things still used to happen faster. But now that's just not a possibility, simply because more often than not, you're just trying to figure out if your students can hear you. So this is very refreshing, because I'm able to see you nodding, but usually like that doesn't happen. So so in terms of these visual cues, in terms of how we utilize this time to suit the online space, and I think the online space is going to be here for a while. I think the one thing that's been working for me, and this is something that Vijeta ma'am told me when I had just joined the department, was to try and not think of what I need to do in a classroom, but what the student needs to learn. So because we have such little time with all of you, it's honestly a little bit scary when you think of what's not able to happen, but at the same time, it's also reassuring to see that something is still happening in spite of all of the nonsense around us. So so in that sense, it's just a matter of what conversation is possible in, let's say, 40-45 minutes. So everything else that comes later, in terms of give them a podcast to listen to, give them a reading a reading beforehand, make sure that they come back with questions. The one thing that I do, and my students probably hate me for it, is always leave a question at the end of the form, because there's no other way I will know if anyone has any doubts. And usually it works, because the form is a rather private mode of communication, so no one else is going to know if there's a doubt. You're not necessarily worried about your doubt being stupid, or someone else laughing at you and things like that. So I mean, within the structure that we're in, and the possibilities that are there or not there, for now, I don't know. I mean, I think it seems to work, but it might change over the next week. But yeah, I think that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I feel kind of awkward saying this, but I prefer online classes. Um, and the reason being, I'm kind of scared in front of crowds, and I'm thinking of the student I was when I joined college, and how I was scared. I remember putting up my hand on the first or second day of class, and feeling so nervous, and my legs were shaking, and I feel like if I had a chat box to do that in, I would have been so happy, because I'd sort of feel like a little less seen, but also more seen. I like online classes because I get to do things like we were doing comics, and so I asked them to make a comic on Canva or on whatever they wanted to make comics on. I could just share different comics makers, and they made comics, and they made such lovely comics, and I made with them, and I did a really bad job, and theirs was so much better than mine, but it was so nice seeing their work. And one class I annotated one of my favorite stories, and I asked them questions, and among the questions was make a playlist for some moments of the story, and they came up with such nice songs. I hadn't heard of most of these songs, and like even today we listened. Well, we didn't have time, so I just posted the link for shout out to Pranav over here. I posted the link to the Attack on Titan ending song, the first one, because that's all I watched, and it made me happy. I don't know if it made anyone else happy, but it made me happy to feel like I was sharing something, and I feel like people get I don't know if this is true, but I feel like people are able to listen to each other and hear each other's voices more in an online class, for me at least, because my voice is generally very quiet, so I know people have problems hearing me when I come into a physical class, but when it's online, and this is a problem when I was a student as well, but when it's online, I feel like even the quiet students can say something and you can hear them, and I like that. So I don't know, I actually like online classes.
Thank you, ma'am. It's truly a lovely way to, modify your approaches to online classes. Also, yeah, as a student, it is very easy to disengage, right? Like, because you are in the privacy of your room or something, you're not in the physical space, so you can sort of go and sort of dissociate. Um, but like Mika ma'am and Muthukumar sir, they do this thing where they share a Google form every few weeks with a question, like what talk about what we have been discussing in the past few classes, and every student has to give a response. So there are like these small ways in which we are learning to stay engaged and pay attention in these classes, and not quickly sort of go into our own private worlds. And also in linguistics classes with Pramod sir, we are doing public presentations and thinking of ways to sort of make what we're learning in the classroom more accessible through performances, etc., to a larger audience. And it's also easier for a larger audience to approach us because of this online mode. So yeah, going on to the next question, which is what happens beyond the classrooms. So earlier it was easier to approach a professor, especially shy students who didn't want to ask questions in front of the whole class like me. I would wait for the professors to, like, when they're wrapping up, putting their files in their briefcase and going out, and just stop them there and then ask a question and have like a little one-on-one conversation. So that was one way of sort of sustaining the conversation beyond the classroom. And how has this changed? So how have interactions with students changed beyond the classroom in the online mode? So anyone can answer this, and like how are you sort of staying there, available, connected for the students?
Should I go?
Yes.
Okay. this is something I've been thinking about quite a bit, because so I don't know if teams had this in the beginning, but when I just started teaching, there was the leave button and there's an end meeting button. Did it always have it? I don't remember, but I think I started using it very late. So I would never do it. I would wait for everyone to leave, or I'd manually remove them from the meeting and then I would leave, because I also didn't want to leave a meeting unattended. I would wait, and then so usually I would wait because of this moment, because I was also always that student who would kind of linger around and wait till everyone leaves and then go like approach the teacher. And it's an important moment also for most students, because this is kind of that entry point, that moment where conversation can begin. So it's not nice that most students don't get that anymore, but I think this is one thing that some are also adapting to very quickly. So this end meeting thing, the reason I remember it is because usually when I'm taking a class, and if I don't have a class later, then I keep waiting, and I don't end the meeting, and I see there'll always be some students who might fall asleep and who are still in the meeting, and then I have to end the meeting. But usually there would be one or two students who might have something to say, or they'll mention it in the beginning only. Once I say okay, you can leave, they'll say, ma'am, I want to talk to you about something. So then they stay back. And I was just thinking about that, because even then sometimes it's not possible, because unmuting is scary. Like, I mean, we have to do it now, but I know it's terrifying. And so I mean, outside of that, the conversations, the lack of conversations that we're having on one level, I don't think it's anything will replace the kind of conversations that you could have sitting in the department, for example. But what's really coming what's really coming up is how available we can be to our students, and how available should we be to our students. And so it's I mean, it both the questions are very different also, because on one level you can't be available all the time, simply because at some point you'll have to go sleep or like do something else. And on another level, sometimes you also need to kind of step back and tell the student to grow up a little bit. So there's also that, right? But at the same time, I think students are also not very hesitant to message. So WhatsApp has become like this easy thing, and then Teams has become like this super easy thing through which you can. This happens to me so often. I always receive one message on WhatsApp, and the next second I receive the exact same thing on Teams, and then there'll be 3 messages after that, and like my notifications will be basically identical, and on WhatsApp and on Teams. So and I completely get why this is happening also, because sometimes I forget to reply. So there's need to make sure that your message is reached, especially when it's an attendance issue or when it's something bigger. So there are, in that sense, there are lots of things also, but I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that it's very important to be available to your students. And the pandemic has changed this in the sense that conversations are a little more awkward. Like, how do you tell a teacher, can I call you, because you can't have this conversation over text? Like, there are like logistical problems like that. But I think the more we have to deal with it, the longer that we are sitting in this pandemic, they are still happening, right? I think that there'll always be some way in which conversation will find its way. So it's still possible, not in the same way that it might be. Like, the one thing I really miss is like giving books to students, and that's just not possible anymore. So something like that, in that sense, there's a loss. But and there's a question of boundaries and all of these things, but I think all of that is like fully secondary, simply because ultimately you'll speak when you need to, and you also do get a sense of when the student really needs help or when they're struggling a little bit, and then they'll only call you. And so in that sense also, because we're also saying also so much, we're working from home, so our days don't have the same kind of boundaries that they had before. So the end of the day or the time at which the student can stop kind of getting in touch with us, that's blurred out a little bit, which I'm not sure if it's a problem or not, but it is what it is. So in that sense, we're kind of always talking to them. Before it wouldn't be like that because they'd have to come and meet you, but now we're always talking to them. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Done.
Yeah, go ahead, Shefali. Go ahead.
Okay. So that's what I miss most about offline classes actually, is the time outside the classroom. The time when you could just sit and have chai and talk, and there's just a lot of noise, and maybe you're part of that noise and maybe you're not part of that noise. But you're there, you've become part of the furniture, like that Oliver Twist song. But I think what I'm finding is, I don't know if this sounds really absurd to me also, I use a lot of emojis. And because I realize when I type, it sounds very strict. I don't know why. I just think like every time I type without an emoji, it sounds like I'm saying, do this, do that. But if I put a smiley face, I feel happier and I feel like maybe I sound a little more available. It's such a weird thing to say, but I feel a little more available if I send an emoji. And also, sometimes I take a while to reply to text, but I always do reply, almost always, because especially if it's something important, if I think that, and students are very kind, no? So that's a really nice thing. So I don't know. I think they're as available to me as I am to them. So I don't know. That doesn't make sense. Okay.
I love your emojis, ma'am. Please keep using them. Yes, sir. You wanted to speak?
See, to make a follow-up to Drishti and Shefali, because of this phone, that is especially the Android, where we have all this notification popping, so we can have a good contact or touch with the student. It is possible even in a virtual way. So if they have any problem or if they have any issues, if they have any complaints or any doubts, anything, I think they message. And if that cannot be resolved through counter messages, through messaging back, I may ask them to call me. So then I just sort it out. So this notification that that brings in us big close to the students, even though we are confined within the online space. So the idea of this notification is a boon to it is a boon and bane. Everything you have two sides, but when you speak about the students' need, definitely it's a boon, because we come to know about their problems or their issues, and we can address it through messages or through calls. And but the biggest toll in this online is not it is, I think we are doing teaching pretty well because teaching goes on, but this biggest toll in online classes, the student teacher interaction outside the class, that is the biggest toll that the present pandemic has taken. So that is the biggest toll, I think, than actual teaching lessons, because we will have this meetings, one-to-one conversation, or the group of students will come to the department, all those things. We or I as a student have the privilege of doing that in my undergrad and postgrad, and even in MPhil or in PhD. But that is a terrible miss. But we have to tackle that in different ways, virtually, that through these notifications. So notifications are the savers of this situation we are put in. Yes.
Connecting to Shefali, I would say this idea of coming to class. I mean, the idea of gathering together, that is something which I'm feeling sad about, about students also, because every day regularly you come and gather. That feeling of gathering, and just you look at the people and you see people thinking and you smile at them when people are actually responding, and you can see the process of thinking done by other person in a physical classroom. um, that is something which is actually missing, and the most I mean, I feel so difficult when I think about this gathering might not happen to many of them after this course. Uh, in some way, you never know. It might continue only for few of us. Uh, as a teacher, this is something very precious, that you will be part of this gathering all your life. But for students, in every batch, maybe many who may not have this opportunity to gather and be part of and listening to other human, not as roll numbers. So this is something very disturbing when we think about that feeling of collective, feeling of very individual thing, and also that actually how to tackle that kind of a way when they become so individual in their own space, how to tackle when they feel so kind of a less confident about what they're producing in their classroom. And also when something is asked them to do, they come with like very beautiful, very precious, very beautiful things in the class, but I'm sometimes feel unable to make them understand how beautiful it is. Because that is needed, that actually comes from their peer groups. Because once they say, only they, in a way, they believe. Mostly teachers, they consider like they're like just saying like that to everyone they will say, just to motivate in them. So this kind of a feeling, very less confidence, which I don't know, it might not have happened in the last semester, but continuously maybe it's coming. Semester is continuously in the online mode. They're not at all meeting people in that sense. This gathering is not happening, not seeing other person doing things very similar to what they are actually doing. So here, what for me, you have to do always extra, which you not need to do in a physical classroom. Extra accommodating, extra friendly, extra make them extra motivating and make them understand. But always this peer kind of a motivation which comes from their friends, which is something. I don't know if it answers the question, but it's something I don't know how to tackle that. Still, I don't know how to tackle that to make them realize that their whatever they're producing is very unique. So one thing is that doing this extra effort to be friendly and accommodating, and because you cannot get both of us, both student and teacher, cannot get any physical cues and cannot understand both what I am also thinking and you are also thinking for a student. So both of us are in a very confusing to make the other person understand that I'm okay when you're talking and I'm listening. So this kind of an extra thing is there, which is otherwise I think in a different way that their students are more comfortable talking to me in online space, personally coming and talk. Specifically, some of them may not come in a physical space because of this virtual. You don't see people, and you can actually talk. That I think so. In this process of extra giving extra, I think in the beginning, as a beginner teacher, in the beginning I felt a little bit, because devoting entire time to the student, in the beginning semester I felt a little bit difficulty. But at this semester it's becoming better. I'm realizing that even if it's 2 o'clock, the first thing you have to get up and see the message and you just to reply that. So that giving extra is something which is happening, and in a way I felt approachable for many of them, which may not happen in a physical classroom. That's what I felt. Because those who are approaching in a physical classroom, they are actually confident approaching you in online also. Those who are talking, they are actually talking online, and offline also they will be confident. But many who don't have that kind of a space, comfortable space in a physical classroom, I think they are coming and approaching in an online platform. So I found it's just a 24 hours work, but it's actually for me it's actually I found it a better way for many of them in that case. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for all the stories and all of the ways that you have been, trying to stay connected to students. So we'll open up the session now. Yes.
Can I? So.
Yeah. Sure.
I feel very weird doing this, but at the same time, so one of the things that sort of makes the department home for me is the owl symbol. It's a big thing for me, and I wanted to introduce you as a Hedwig. I don't know if you can see him properly. Yeah, there you go. This Hedwig. He's a big part of the department for me, and he's sort of like, I don't know, conversation starter and things when I'm feeling awkward. So I just wanted to say hello to all the students who haven't seen Hedwig before.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. So we have questions from the audience. We'll open it up to the second part of this panel now. First question is.
Did not answer it, so I'm just intervening.
Yeah, Pramod. Did Pramod answer the second question?
No.
Pramod.
It's fine. He can answer this question from the student.
I thought I'd sit quietly and be a good student.
Your camera is on. You can't sit quietly. Unmute your mic.
Can you hear me?
We can very much hear you. Go ahead.
I thought I'll be a good student and just nod along. No, but yes, I concur with all the points that were made. Essentially, the thing that Muthu said about notifications, right? At some point, I was talking to one of my colleagues, and he said he gets about 300 messages in a day. And I was like, thank God I don't. Oh, man. I don't know. I would probably get a panic attack or something if I did get that many messages, because it's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. I mean, with the few messages that I get, I can't keep up. I really can't. And with that many messages, I don't know what I would do, right? And so when Drishti was talking about we being accessible to students all the time, right? The private chat is available. The chat on the class group, the meeting is there, right? And so I think that's a really nice thing that we have this dual channel that's going on, simply because I've had some students who would talk to me on private chat and say, sir, this assignment or this writing task is a little hard, right? Could you explain it to us? But they don't want to put it on that class chat, right? In some sense, it somehow exposes them. And so it makes sense, right? A lot of other platforms like Google Classroom surprisingly doesn't have that, right? And so it's definitely that, like, we are available in a lot of ways. And also, yeah, it's weird when you get a message on Saturday night. But we, as a new teacher, I think you've got to get used to all of this. Like Micah was pointing out, initially it was obviously very, very hard, right? But then we grew into that role, and now we are a lot more comfortable with it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. All right. So yeah, we'll move on to the next part of this panel. We have the first question from 19JIP. What do you tell yourself when the awkward silence sets in online classes? What is your go-to method to dispel this quietness? Whoever wants to answer this.
I think Muthu sir should.
Okay, I think what I will do is I'll wait for 2 or 3 minutes. Then what I think then what I will do is I'll start calling out them names. Please answer. If you don't answer, then I will just say the class will not go anywhere. We will be stuck at this place. So I'll just motivate them that it is your answer that will take this class forward, because it is you who give stimulus to me, or it is you who make the path or decide the path to on which direction I should go. So you are the guide to me, so please guide me. Please answer. In that fashion I talk to them, and somehow one or two people turn up. But the problem is the usual one or two turn up. That is the big problem. And then I know we will know in each class who answers, and I'll just say wait for a minute, I'll get you an answer later, then I will ask others to answer. But if I think in some class, then you have this handy weapon of attendance. So that it's like Brahmastra. So you just put that on them and just say attendance. So please answer. Like that. That is the last resort, because Brahmastra we use it in the last resort. No, so that is the last, very final resort. If answers come before that, no need of, I don't use that, but I'm forced to use in certain classes. Then I think somehow people turn up. So that is the way. But it will be very awkward, very difficult to have that silence, because it's you call pin drop or grave silence. So that will be set in, and we will not have any we won't know which way we should take. So that silence is very intimidating, but we have to overcome it.
Right, this time I'm going to unmute myself and speak. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So just to answer that question, right? Sometimes if I don't have my camera on, right, I'd like to go like, aha, I got that fellow, because a lot of times it's good fun to catch some students who are like totally not present, right? I mean, they are just not there. They would have turned it on and then gone off somewhere. And sometimes it's like fishing. At times you catch some of these fellows, and it's not great, but it's some cheap comedy that I like to think about when I catch some of these fellows and then kick them out of the meeting and then lock the class, right? So all of these things that I resort to, I find it in some level it's a little funny, right? Students definitely won't agree with me, but yeah, it's the thing is, a lot of our undergrad courses, right, at least in general English, it's based on this idea of communication skills, right? And when we look at people communicating, right, if we are trying to develop that, right, people have to speak, people have to interact with us, they'll have to read for us, they have to write for us, all of these things will have to happen, right? And so on a lot of levels, the student has to be willing to do that. And if they're not willing to do all of these things, I feel a little sad that you've come to this class, this is what you want to pick up, but if you don't put in that effort, it's kind of sad that you're not doing that at all. And I feel bad on some level too, but yeah, that's but yeah, we'll have to deal with what we've got.
Should we go to the next question?
Yes. So next question is by 19JIP. What do you take comfort in when you have a class that isn't very interactive?
I think it's the same question. No?
Yeah. So unless anyone else wants to add anything, we can move on to the next question. Yes. Okay, so 18 PCM is asking if they can unmute and ask the question. So are you here, 18 PCM?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on.
Yeah. I'm Abby. My pronouns are she and they. Like the English department has always been a place where like I felt safe, and the English class. I mean, I use my to the extent that I go by my dead name in every class except in English class to illustrate the extent of safety I feel, and like I kind of feel like the online space, especially for people in not so kind families are not don't like I'm sorry for my stammer. I'm autistic. Like what are your thoughts on this, and how do you think the thing I asked this because like for a very large portion of the pandemic I was with my family, and whenever English class happened I used to like take my phone and go to a very secluded part of the house where like nobody would hear me talk because I'm sure that I'm gonna bring up something gay. Yeah, do any of you have anything to like say about this safety and like the online is like both safe and not at the same time. Like there is some I don't know, there is something about a classroom and a university setting that just
I think yeah, do someone want to respond?
So Abby, sorry if I'm not wrong, you asked about the kind of safety that students might feel in a classroom and the loss of this safety, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, this is something that's definitely, and there's no point calling it anything else because it is some kind of loss. And most often, the one thing that I haven't considered and is actually that I've been thinking about a little bit is if is parents overhearing classes and things like that, and that's not something that I've really thought about, but I'm wondering like exactly what that means for the student also, because a lot of times the conversations we might be having, you might not want someone from your family to also add in whatever or to even listen, right? So I mean, in terms of trying to create some kind of substitute for this space, the only thing we can do, or the only thing I would want to do, is to make sure that there's enough conversation in the classroom. In terms of ensuring the physical space, I mean, I think all of us are powerless in that sense, because it's most often even some teachers are struggling to take classes at home because even these spaces are not safe for them. But I mean, of course, that's something else. But still, I think the only thing we can do is just offer a space for conversation, a safe space, and I think thankfully that's not something that has been compromised. At least I think so. That hasn't been compromised, at least in the space that we are in. So it's taken some time for it to kind of solidify in this online mode, but it's still there. So and I think that also goes back to the question of making sure that you're available to your students, because we think of this availability in terms of okay, what doubts do you have and things like that, but it's actually beyond. And I think it's because of the subject also that we're teaching, that comes naturally also depending on what we're doing in class. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I hope.
I think it's very important. It's a very important question that we have had from this student, because it tells the importance of a university space, especially for the humanities subject, where we always try to push the boundaries, in terms of ideas, in terms of the because we study essentially the human world. So in terms of ideas, so this pushing of boundaries happen, and that can happen only in a university space, that is in a college space within a classroom, because within a classroom, a teacher, students, they are not controlled by any external thing. Like, for example, everybody comes from, as far as India, everybody comes from a family, so you have that institutionalization there. And when we go to a university or a college, we though it is a temporary liberation, we have that liberation to at least discuss, or at least push our boundary in terms of thought, whether we carry out in terms of action or not, whether we have the power or not, but at least in terms of thought, we are trying to push the boundary. But I think pandemic has made that a very difficult one, because everybody is in their home. So home is not an ideal place for I can say, not an ideal place for ideal ideas or great ideas, because home has certain convention, certain all those things. So that the theme of the meta itself is unconfined. So that I think that unconfined is get confined in home, and the real unconfined is in the university. And pandemic has challenged that university space. I don't know how we can tackle this issue, because we have to, as the student said, no, she has to choose a secluded place. Don't let us let alone interact. First we have to choose a secluded or a safe space where myself and my teacher has that liberty or freedom to juggle with ideas. So that space is challenged by the pandemic, and we don't know how we can uh, it depends on economic, all those things, because maybe those who are rich enough, they may have separate room, so they can lock the room, they can have a free conversation. But in terms of not so privileged, then you have difficulty so. And especially with subjects like English or other humanities subject, where we talk about, or we try to demystify what we have, what beliefs we have, but we cannot do that in the family. It's very difficult, and they will think so that's a very difficult thing. But we don't know what how this can be sorted out. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult problem we have.
Can I just add on to what Muthu and Drishti have said?
Sure, sir.
Yeah, no, just to respond to that question, right? And so the thing is with online spaces, right? Definitely there are pros and cons of it being a safe space, right? But that was always the case, right? Classrooms were never completely safe space, right? As long as authority figures were there, it's safe to a certain extent, right? The moment the authority figure left that scene, right, you were always open to bullying, you were always open to ridicule, right? All of those things were definitely there, right? Some of those things are fortunately not here, right? You can just block people, you can do all of those things on the online space. Fortunately, thank God for that, right? And the other thing with online space, right? The other day we were looking at childhood memories, and one of the students were talking about how as a child he fell down and his mom picked him up and called him his nickname and kissed his wound, right? And in the background I could hear laughter, and I said, who is that laughing? He's like, my mom, right? And so that's when I was aware that yeah, there are parents listening, right? That was like a good thing, right? But what happens if you're talking about politics, you're talking about things that don't align with your family, right?
That is what.
And in those cases, what I found really works is that our solace in writing, right? You find a space in writing, right? You can send your response on forms, or you can send it as a message. It's such a blessing, right? And I usually ask people if they want me to tell or want them, what do you want to read out your response? Sometimes, very few times, there have been people who said, no, I don't want to read it out. I'm not comfortable reading it. And I respect that. I understand that that may not be what people want to say out loud. And yeah, that there are all of these difficulties like Muthu was pointing out. But yeah, there are fortunately some pros that go with it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for answering the question. 19 CPE has asked, have you come across new things about your students that you have known offline through the online mode? How does that feel?
Okay, so I actually have something to say for this. I found out that one of my students had synesthesia, and I was thrilled. And she asked me if it was something bad or anything. I said, of course not. And it was exciting. Every time I find someone, so my aunt has synesthesia. There's one person in JIP who I think has a sort of synesthesia, and every time I find someone who has it, I'm just so amazed by it. So I was really thrilled, actually. It feels nice to discover new things about people, always, online or offline.
The next question, I think Pramod sir answered that. So do you call on students that don't speak during class after reading the responses on the forms? Does anyone else want to add to this, or we can move on to the next question?
I think it's not necessary to call on the student, but if there's an interesting point that's brought up, or if there's a doubt or things like that, I mean, that I don't hesitate to. So even if it's some dabba response that I have to address in class, I will say it, and that student will know, but I don't say who it is. So I mean, that kind of embarrassment I can spare them and myself. But if something needs to be brought up, then it should be brought up.
Right.
Yeah.
Next question is, do teachers find it annoying when the same student tries to answer all of the questions?
I think Natka also has a very lovely reply to this on the chat. But
yes. So Nadika ma'am has said, I wouldn't call it annoying. I just find it disappointing. More of you aren't talking. I'm a believer in banting.
Same. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. With online classes, how do you stay available to the students with our endless queries without feeling overwhelmed? All the WhatsApp messages and the Teams messages.
I think I didn't say I wasn't overwhelmed.
Right. So anyone else wants to add to that question, or we can move on?
I think this part which I mentioned about consciously you are training yourself to give extra all the time. and just making yourself understand personally that it's something needed for them. That is something which is, and sometimes I do tell few who actually sending, and sometimes I don't reply in certain times, which I think it is necessary to make them understand that every time also we cannot reply. Maybe it's like you're engaged in something very important and you cannot reply. Maybe that would be a Sunday or Saturday. You have other appointments. So and unless it's very important, very emergency kind of a situation where that time it is needed. Otherwise, I would prefer day, which is a working day, Monday morning by 9 answer will be given. So something like that. So that kind of understanding, I think they will also they also need, but that which does not hamper that space where they can actually approach. So I think prioritizing this questions and queries when you're answering is something which is very much important. Otherwise, you will be answering to everything, and sometimes you won't even get answers from them. You will be waiting for them to answer. They will like, okay, I got the answer. Okay, you, I don't have to tell you. There are incidents like I have to ask 3-4 times to a student or few students who like, and then okay, that is a mistake, ma'am. I asked to the wrong person. That is you. Like I should have asked to another person. So this prioritizing and something is very important. It's not that like we are like 24 hours when we say that 24 hours availability, that doesn't mean that we are not prioritizing certain questions. We are prioritizing an answer. That's what I do. So it's not, and everybody will be getting the answer, but according to the priority and the emergency, which is something needed, I think. Yeah.
Honestly, I do feel a little overwhelmed at times, but I'm also that student. I am the one who will keep pestering Arul sir or Vijeta ma'am or Drishti also, even though Drishti is not my teacher, my questions, because I have so many of them and I don't know the answer. So I know where they're coming from. I am that student, and so even if I feel overwhelmed, I get it.
Yeah, same thing. It's like all the questions which I have, I will keep on answering. And if I ask certain too much questions, doubts, because I'm a new faculty, I keep on asking questions to my colleagues. Many of them might have felt. Then I go back and check my chat and I feel like, oh, I look like that kind of student. But yeah, but I think they should also understand we are also like that. So
I think it's not a question of us getting overwhelmed. It's about whether we can answer all of these questions, like whether it's physically possible, but and also what the students need to know. So it's like I think the direction of the question should just be inverted, and then it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so next person has asked, I think Drishti ma'am has given an angry react to this. Do you feel the pressure to be perceived as scary instead of sweet to your students? Why?
good question, actually.
Drishti, please answer this. It's interesting.
But okay, the reason I reacted to this message was because I was speaking to these Dabba first time students, and they said something about me being sweet, and I said I don't want to be sweet, whatever. So it just became a whole thing. But the reason this came up and Pramod is laughing is because as in when you just start teaching, it's also very important to, I think, irrespective of what you're doing in your classes, is to just appear as if you know everything. So, and that also comes with at least appearing a little scary. So this is not to say unapproachable or anything, but just someone that can't be messed with. So in that sense, it's not the pressure of being scary, but it's the pressure of making sure that your student knows that you can't be messed with. And I think that that all of us might feel in different ways, right? I think even Micah is nodding. So especially I mean, in the
Yeah,
class,
I
this
got the same comment, so that's I'm nodding it like.
yeah, and I think in a physical classroom, this is even more important because then you have to assert your presence with your body and with your voice, and sometimes that doesn't happen. Here, you can do it because you can unmute, you can mute your student, and you can make them attendees or whatever. But so that's actually a more offline question than it is an online.
I think it comes. I don't know if there is any gender involved in that. For a lady teacher, it's become very sweet and so I think students should understand that kind of a combinations also, which is actually working when you. Yeah. I don't know if like for male teachers they have to listen to this your some kind of a compliment, which is yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, no, also I'd like to add that yeah, on a lot of levels, as a student, as a human being, right, you're always pushing the envelope of when you can submit something, right? And so the nicer the teacher is, you think that you can push it a little more. I mean, it's only human to do that, right? I mean, a nicer person you can negotiate with. A harsh authority you can't do anything with, so you just keep quiet and get the work done, right? And so I think that's what Drishti and Micah are saying about appearances sometimes, that you have to appear stern simply because you have to get the work done. And sometimes it's in our students' best interest to submit your assignment on time because we can value it and give you marks. Right? It's not that we want it, we'll keep it for ourselves. Thank you very much. Right? So it's it's all of these things, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Next question is by 19 CPE. How do you comfort students who can't wait to break free from the online space when you are also unsure of when it might happen?
Maybe tell them
Anyone?
that we are also in the same scenario to make them understand all of us are going through the same pressure. I always start my first class by saying that how I am feeling. I have started in all the classes saying that how I am feeling in the online classroom. It's really disappointing. How disappointed myself in this scenario. I think some kind of a solidarity. Otherwise. Otherwise, I don't know at this point of time how to. This is something which is related to which I mentioned in the last one of the question where something which they are actually this breaking feeling kind of a what is it, the classroom feeling. I don't know how to make them understand to wait just to give some ideas like I don't know, some dabba idea, like it might make you more flexible and all those stuff. I don't know, it does not work. I'm really sure about that. But something which is we as a teacher, which how flexibility is becoming very important. Making them understand it's very important. I think that we are also struggling, becoming like shifting the mode and shifting the classroom style. And it's not they are not alone in that sense. All of us are. Yeah.
Yes. And also, yeah, with time also, like in the beginning, I was also one of those students who would not unmute and still little bit trying to unmute myself. But I think with time, yes, I know that little. So with time, I think I've started because this has been going on for a long time, and now like I have things to say, so I'll just unmute and I'll say it, even though it's stupid. So courage is happening, I think, just because I'm getting more used to this mode of teaching and education. Yeah. The last question is by 20 ENG. How do you deal and respond to banter that tends to happen between students before class formally starts? This is for online classes, I'm guessing, but sure.
I think online classes, because the moment we enter into the class, I think everybody, mutes their mic because mute their mic and they make it a point that nobody, unmute. That is the see here offline. If offline classes is all about controlling the students, to talking among themselves. Online classes about making the students to talk. That's the challenge is being reversed actually. I think I remember when I come inside the class, you will have some interaction. Class, people will be speaking, but the moment I enter, then they will be a bit silent. So I will ask them to speak. Yeah, okay. Still you have 2 minutes to go. Then you can just speak with your classmates, like that. I say at least then they will have some interaction. So this peer community gathering, all those things, at least it will happen. But unfortunately, when I enter, it is my experience. So when I enter, they will be silent. So that is the thing.
I'm just gonna answer this for offline classes because I don't know, but when you enter an offline class and there's a lot of noise going on, I actually like it because I feel like the students. One thing I loved about Joseph when I was a student was how at home everyone seemed, and I like going into a class and seeing people at home with each other. And sometimes they'll scream, "Hi, ma'am!" And it's so nice. I don't know. I feel validated when I hear someone scream, "Hi, ma'am." It's nice. So I actually like walking into a classroom where there is noise.
Yeah, I also.
Yes.
I actually made in one class to scream. Still, they were so hesitant. So, yeah, I mean, that is something very disappointing in the sense. Otherwise, they would have just. I would have unable to make them stop screaming in a physical class. So, yeah.
Did you make them unmute and scream?
Yeah.
Oh.
Very interesting.
Screaming and leaving the classroom. That's what happened. Yeah, but still many could not.
Because
So
home
the
is a
one thing
constraint.
which is something interesting happened that somebody, I could understand many were outside and many like honking was happening, like honking the. So there's like you are actually doing a mistake by doing that because I can understand you're outside. Yeah, and your friends were gathering and sitting in their class, and other people are making screaming in the class. That is something very interesting. Yeah. But I agree with Shefali. Just entering the class where people are like doing many things and crying about last hour, and you just get to know the stories, what happened in the last hour, and like that exam was so bad. What should we do? Then you feel like, yeah, I also gone through the same thing. You tell them. That is so beautiful. Which is I don't know when will it happen here.
Yeah, sadly, most of the banter happens in group chats now because we have to make for projects. Yeah, okay, we have one more question from 18 PCM. What do you think about the changing nature of academic conferences? Although I'm attending more of them, I feel like I'm getting far less from them, especially the post-conference banter.
One thing you can think is to prioritize what you want to attend. It's like too many things are happening, which is not at all necessary or something which does not have any quality for the sake of it. But one good thing for me is that I'm able to listen to people who are otherwise I were not at all possible. Those who are like really nice speakers and writers and those who are academicians, which is not at all approachable for people like us, especially a student or a teacher from India, a country like India. We have to wait for 2 years, 3 years for them to come to India. And
Yes.
and they just then you have to spend a lot of effort and money to listen to them. So prioritizing it is something which is very much needed because I think from unlike in the beginning of the pandemic where this kind of a urge to do and experiment with the webinar mode, something filtering is happening at this point of time. I felt really because the time is like they have taken time, very good lectures have taken time, and now they are actually coming up with really nice uh, conference and webinar. And also something which is really nice, which is happening in Instagram, where people have started to talk you find like plenty of specifically you cannot listen to an individual poet or a writer talking unless space is there. So like this live mode on Instagram, just exploring these kind of things actually is very nice because they are so comfortable talking from their device and talking to us, and otherwise you won't meet these people. So I think you should look at in that perspective, because always, unlike unless in, even if in the physical format also you will get conferences which is you don't have to go.
Yes.
So prioritizing that and finding what is right for you is something very important at this point of time, which is actually available at this point of time. Yeah.
I think that is this global, all these things we cannot get otherwise. In offline it's very difficult to meet people whom we study in our syllabus and all. It is very difficult to meet all these things. But I think this whole idea of webinar has opened it. But only thing is, there are as usual you have a lot of trash happening, so you need to just say filter the trash and take something solid and which can be useful, and because you are spending your time so which can worth it. So that I think that priority we need to have. But it's a great opportunity, especially this virtual conferences where we can meet people all around the world. That's a big boon when it comes to webinar. I think that is the only that is the positive thing about this online mode.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for answering all these questions. And yeah, like although this has created a lot of distance between professors, students, and all of that, but it's trying to bridge gaps, trying to bridge distances also in their own ways, and always thankful and grateful to be part of these classes and newer ways of teaching, and finding ways to stay connected still in this world. And yeah, so with that, we will wrap up this discussion, this panel discussion. And we have events tomorrow. Let me just, 1 second, find the PDF. One second. So tomorrow we have at 4:30 p.m. we have the prize ceremony for the Professor T.G. Vaidyanathan Film Review Contest. 5 p.m. we have reading Malayalam writing English, a conversation with writer Nishra Susan. And at 6 p.m. we have the jam. So links are up on the Meta Joseph's Instagram page. There's a link tree. You can access that, and you'll go to the Teams meeting. Come 10 minutes before the event. You can join so that you can stay connected. And yeah, this will go up on our YouTube channel on SJC Department of English, and you can watch the re-uploaded version there. So yes, thank you.